I love Charlie Parker phrases. I love listening to them. I love figuring them out. I like using them in my playing. I love teaching them, all of it. So here's one I heard today that I just had to show you. And this is, we'll discuss how it works and all that sort of stuff in a while. But this is the phrase. Now, you may have heard me say before that the act of learning to improvise involves a couple of important things, amongst others, but learning to build short phrases of your own, learning to make connections, not relying on licks and copied phrases to teach you the entire game. But that doesn't mean we never do it. There's so much you can learn from a phrase like this. In fact, we're going to take it apart and see how it works so that it means something in your playing. And Jazz Skills members, I know a lot of you follow along here, so I'll be recording a separate lesson for you with many more phrases built on this one, variations and how they work, with a smart sheet for you to practice them with in different keys if you want to. So what's happening in this phrase? Well, interestingly, the chord progression is in the key of E flat. You can see we've got our E flat, C7, F7, which is the beginnings of a 1-6-2-5 chord progression. So chord 1 in E flat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 would normally be C minor 7, but it can be C7, and would normally be F minor 7, but it can also be F7, using these dominants before it would finally get to most likely B flat 7 at the end. But anyway, that's what we have. And what's really interesting about it is this. First of all, let's talk through what's going on. In the recording, you'll hear this at the beginning, which I didn't transcribe. I did from those triplets. And don't worry if you don't read, I'm going to explain all this stuff anyway. Landing on the third of F7 there as our completion. When you are improvising on C7, this, I think really the big thing here is this a C7 phrase. I think that's the most important part of this lesson. I have another lesson showing how to choose scales for dominant chords, so I'll link that in the description below. But for now, let's say if you have a C7 going to F7, you can use the straight C7 scale, which comes from the F major scale, but there's reasons why I'm calling it a different scale, which we won't get into right now. Or you can also use the F harmonic minor scale. Now, if you take that from C, you can hear that it lands nicely on an F minor. However, that also works if you're going to F7, and that's exactly what Charlie Parker's doing in this case. If you're enjoying this lesson, would you please give it a like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when there's new content. It really helps to grow on this channel and do more of this for you. And if you're interested in leveling up your improvisation, then consider joining us on Jazz Skills. More about that at the end. For now, let's get back into the lesson. So if we take these notes quite slowly, now ignore the sort of extra notes there. Let's take it like that, down the F harmonic minor scale. A jump, we'll see why. Down the scale, and landing on the third of F7. So what's going on? Well, half step join between, those are the actual scale notes, but he's made it a triplet, and down the scale. Now, when we're playing C7, we often use a diminished, which is really the one moved up a half step. There's the C7 chord with C moved up a half step. He's using, and that by the way, that diminished chord is the same as these, there we go, those notes. If I just keep those notes from the scale, it's quite difficult to do. But those are the diminished notes that correspond to C7. He explores them in his phrase. He has that triplet down the scale. And from here, a jump to form that diminished down the scale and to the third of F7. Now, something else that's really interesting here is notice how he's begun with that F harmonic minor scale before we even get to C7. Now that's interesting. A beautiful element of his playing there, where he's not even waiting for the bar line, where most people would say, oh, you know what? I've got a C7 here. Let me start doing all that stuff here. But then it starts to sound like, okay, I'm playing E flat, I'm playing C7, I'm playing F, and everything's compartmentalized. But he gets away with beginning right from the beginning of the phrase, using the D flat and other notes from the F harmonic minor scale. So 1, 2, scale, scale, diminished, down the scale to the F7. Now, fingering wise, the tricky bit is this. Could be like that, is that jump. So it could be 5 to 1 if you can grab that. Let me see if I really do that in real time. 1, 2. That's one way to do it. Even if it's here on 4, as long as you get 5 or 4, 3 not so much for me, 5 or 4. Let's put 5 there, and then we're really in position, right? To get to the next part. Another really lovely thing to notice in this is his use of pivoting. So pivoting is, for example, when you take a phrase like that diminished. Let's take a diminished, that G diminished. And if you cut off a note and all the notes beyond that and just put them down an octave or up an octave, it's easier to show you what I mean. If I take this E diminished and then cut all the notes above the E and put them down the octave, I'll get this. So what used to be this, I wonder if you can hear that in the phrase already, what used to be a straight E diminished is now E at the top, everything else in the same order but in the octave below. This is how you can study these things and get more for your playing, because now you're learning a method, a way of thinking rather than just one phrase. It could be 1, 2. That would also make perfect sense. Fine. I wonder if I could pivot after the first 2 notes instead. So the B flat and the D flat go down. I don't know if that's going to work. We'll try it. Here goes. 1, 2. Yeah, it's okay. Don't like it so much, but it's worth practicing. Or you can just change the order of the notes of that diminished and see if that takes you somewhere else. So for example, rather than having the diminished going straight up or broken, pivoted, maybe I'll just jump straight from the bottom to the top. And that would be like going down it, but pivoting that. So these two come up here. Let's see what comes of that. Here goes. Same phrase other than this. 1, 2. Triplet down the scale. Could be. There was what Barry used to call a surround note, or people call an enclosure, half step enclosure, and then a jump. Again, that's kind of like a pivot because I'm going down the scale now thinking F7, so the F7 scale. Okay, let's see the whole phrase. 1, 2. Quite like that, actually. I think I'm going to practice it. So that's my point. It's not a choice between either copy licks and phrases and have no skills, or just be building your own phrases, but do your best to learn from anything that's available to you. Improve your ear by doing lots of this and taking small chunks. I think something that people do wrong is they take massive long phrases and difficulty and complexity rather than getting good at any simple thing here. And clearly Charlie Parker is very adept at taking a scale and a diminished chord and doing so many beautiful things with it. I hope you enjoyed that, and if you'd like to improve your improvisation, then come and see us on Jazz Skills, where you'll find clear methods to follow and a developing fluency course to get you fluent with the language in the first place, lessons on voicings, playing tunes, improvisation, the Barry Harris method, chord movements, support from me, live webinars, a vibrant community, you name it, we've got it. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.